Hello my friend. Today we will sit together to listen and reflect on one of the Buddha's very practical teachings, which is right livelihood. In the Noble Eightfold Path, each factor is important, but right livelihood is perhaps the one most closely tied to our everyday lives. Because it isn't something far away in theory. It is present in the way we make a living, the way we support ourselves and our families. Every single day we have to work. We have to find ways to provide for our lives. And this very act, if taken in the wrong direction, can bring unease and suffering, but if taken in the right direction, it can become the foundation of peace and happiness. Right livelihood can be simply understood as this: we support ourselves through an honest profession. One that does not harm others, does not cause suffering to any beings, does not involve deceit, and does not rely on unfairness or exploitation. It means choosing a way of life rooted in integrity, sustained by our own hands and minds, free from the shadows of harm. It sounds simple, but in reality, practicing right livelihood is not always easy. Life constantly presents us with choices. Sometimes doing what is right is harder, takes more effort, while doing what is wrong seems easier, faster, and more profitable. And it is exactly in those moments that the Buddha's teaching on right livelihood shines like a lamp to guide us. Think of an ordinary day at work. When we step into our work with honesty, knowing clearly that what we do does not hurt anyone, then each task becomes lighter. We may feel tired or challenged, but deep inside there is no unease. On the other hand, if we choose a job that we know in our hearts causes harm, whether it harms people, the environment, or living beings, then even if we earn a lot of money, we will never feel true peace. Because at night, when there is only us and our conscience, we will hear that quiet voice reminding us. The Buddha taught that those who earn their living in an honest way are planting wholesome seeds for the future. Every action we take today is a seed. If we plant it through dishonesty, that seed will sprout into anxiety and suffering. But if we plant it with purity and integrity, that seed will grow into joy and peace. For this reason, right livelihood is not only about earning money to survive, but also about nurturing the soul. You can see this truth in real-life experiences. A person who works honestly may not earn much, but inside they're at ease. They sleep well at night because they know their work doesn't harm anyone. They are proud because the money they bring home comes from their sincere effort. On the other hand, someone who becomes wealthy through dishonest means might feel happy at first, but over time they become restless, worried, always afraid of being discovered, always fearful of loss. That kind of wealth doesn't bring happiness. It only increases inner turmoil. Right livelihood also teaches us the value of contentment. Many people chase after money and status, willing to sacrifice anything to achieve it. But the more they chase, the more they feel empty, because craving has no end. In contrast, someone who lives by right livelihood understands that happiness doesn't depend on how much money they have, but on whether their heart is at peace. A simple meal with family, a restful night's sleep, a sincere smile. These are worth far more than wealth built on dishonesty. My friend, we live in a world filled with temptations. There are jobs that promise quick profit, but hidden in them is harm to others or to life itself. If we choose that path, we may become rich, but it is only an outer appearance. Inside, we lose our peace, our integrity, and even our self-respect. The Buddha advised us to support ourselves through a wholesome path, so that each day we can hold our head high and look our loved ones in the eye without shame. Right livelihood does not mean abandoning modern comforts, nor does it mean giving up our careers to find some lofty profession. It simply means, pause and ask whether the work we are doing harms anyone. If our job supports us honestly, then it is already right livelihood. A farmer tending the fields, a teacher guiding students, a doctor caring for the sick, a craftsman working with skilled hands, all are living right livelihood if their work is done with integrity. It is important to remember that money is not only material, it is energy. If that energy comes from dishonesty, violence, or harm, then when we use it, we are also feeding suffering within ourselves. But if money comes from honest labor, from pure effort, it carries peaceful energy. Every meal, every home, every piece of clothing that sustains us will become a source of joy when built on right livelihood. You can see that right livelihood is the foundation that supports all the other parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. When our way of living is honest, our mind is lighter, making it easier to practice right thought. right speech, and right action. On the other hand, if our livelihood comes from harmful means, then no matter how good our words or actions may appear, our heart still carries the weight of wrongdoing, because the root is already compromised. Right livelihood is not only about the type of work we choose, but also about the way we carry it out. Even within a wholesome profession, if we approach it with greed, dishonesty, or exploitation, we are no longer in line with right livelihood. For example, a shopkeeper who sells food is offering something useful to others. But if they cheat with false weights, hide spoiled goods, or overcharge unfairly, then that work is tainted. On the other hand, if the same shopkeeper treats customers with fairness and honesty, their work becomes a way of practicing kindness and integrity. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that our work should be aligned with compassion. Livelihood is not only about providing for our body, it also shapes our mind and heart. When we do work that nourishes life, we nourish our own soul. When we engage in work that destroys or deceives, we slowly damage our own heart. This is why so many people feel empty even after achieving success in harmful or dishonest professions. Their outer wealth cannot cover the inner wound. Think about this. Each morning, when you wake up and go to work, you are not only earning money, you are also shaping your future self. Every task, every interaction, every choice plants seeds in your mind. If those seeds are watered with truth, care, and fairness, they will bloom into confidence, trust, and peace. If they are watered with deceit or harm, they will sprout into guilt, fear, and unrest. Right livelihood is not only about survival, it is about what kind of person you are becoming through the way you survive. In today's world, we often hear stories of people sacrificing their health, their values, and even their families in the pursuit of wealth. They may earn more, but they lose their peace. Right livelihood is the opposite path. It teaches us that real wealth is not the size of a bank account but the depth of inner calm. A modest income earned with honesty brings more happiness than a fortune built on harm. The Buddha once reminded that contentment is the greatest wealth. Right livelihood is a direct way to live in that contentment. It is important to also see how right livelihood is connected with responsibility. Every job affects more than just the one who does it. A farmer provides food for the community. A teacher shapes the minds of children. A doctor relieves suffering. In each of these, the worker's livelihood ripples out to others. This means that through our profession, we can be either a source of well-being or a source of harm. Right livelihood is choosing to be the former. Let's imagine a small example. A baker wakes up before dawn to prepare bread. They may not think of it as spiritual practice, but in truth, their livelihood nourishes the lives of many families. Each loaf that is baked with care and sold with fairness is more than food. It is a gift of sincerity. The customers may never realize it, but they are touched by the honesty and dedication behind that work. This is how everyday livelihood, when practiced rightly, becomes part of the path to peace. On the other side, think of a person whose work exploits others. Perhaps they profit by spreading lies, selling harmful products, or taking advantage of those in need. They may seem successful, but deep inside there is always a seed of unease. The conscience is not something that can be silenced forever. At some point, the harm done returns as restlessness and regret. Even if society praises such people for their wealth, they cannot find true joy. That is why the Buddha's teaching on right livelihood remains timeless. It is not about outside approval, but about the truth inside. Another important aspect of right livelihood is moderation. Many times, we take up jobs not only to meet our needs but to satisfy endless wants. We may work excessively, take on questionable projects, or compromise our values just to gain more. Right livelihood invites us to pause and ask, what is enough? By living with enough, we protect ourselves from the temptation of harmful choices. We free our time and energy for what truly matters: family, friendship, kindness, and inner growth. Right livelihood also brings dignity. When you work honestly, you stand tall. No matter how much or how little you earn, you can look at yourself without shame. This dignity is a kind of invisible wealth that no one can take away. Even in times of struggle, it gives strength. Many people who live by right livelihood radiate a quiet confidence. They may not have riches, but they carry something much more precious: peace of mind. In a broader sense, right livelihood is about harmony with the whole of life. Our livelihood is not separate from the earth, from other beings, from the future, If we exploit nature recklessly for profit, we destroy the very ground we stand on. If we deceive others for gain, we poison trust in society. But if we live and work with respect for people, for animals, for the environment, we help sustain balance. In this way, right livelihood is not only a personal practice but also a contribution to the world. Sometimes, people ask, but what if my current job does not fully align with right livelihood? Do I have to quit everything? The answer is not always black and white. What matters is awareness. The first step is to look deeply. Does my work cause harm? If so, how can I reduce that harm? Can I make choices within my role that lean toward compassion and fairness? Sometimes, even a small change in intention can transform the energy of work. And if the harm is too great, perhaps we need the courage to change paths. The Buddha's teaching is not meant to bind us but to guide us gently toward more wholesome choices. Ultimately, right livelihood is about living with integrity. It is about aligning our daily efforts with our deeper values. When our work and our heart are in harmony, life becomes lighter. We no longer feel the split between making a living and living a meaningful life. They become one and the same. And that unity is where true happiness arises. Right livelihood also means understanding that the way we work influences the way we think and feel. A livelihood is not just an activity to earn money, it shapes our character. If someone spends day after day deceiving, their heart becomes accustomed to dishonesty. If someone spends years exploiting others, cruelty becomes a habit. But if one's work is filled with care, patience, and honesty, then these qualities grow stronger inside. In this way, livelihood is not only what we do, but what we become. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us that a life is not measured only by wealth or status, but by the quality of the heart. A person can have little in terms of possessions yet be rich in kindness and peace. Another may have everything money can buy but remain poor in joy. Right livelihood is the bridge between external living and inner being. It ensures that our pursuit of survival does not rob us of our humanity. Imagine, for example, a teacher who dedicates years to guiding students. Their salary may not be large, but the seeds they plant will continue for generations. This is right livelihood in its most beautiful form, where one's work becomes a gift that extends far beyond oneself. Compare this to someone who earns riches by selling harm, perhaps through deception or exploitation. Even if they appear powerful, the inner poverty is undeniable. This contrast shows us clearly how livelihood determines the direction of the soul. Another element of right livelihood is respect. Respect for oneself, respect for others, respect for the truth. When we lie from work that dishonors others, we also dishonor ourselves. But when we choose a livelihood aligned with compassion, we naturally feel respect for who we are. This respect builds confidence. It allows us to walk in the world with open eyes, without hiding, without shame. Right livelihood is also about responsibility toward future generations. The work we do today shapes the world they will inherit. If we engage in jobs that pollute, exploit, or destroy, we pass down suffering. But if we work in ways that protect, nurture, and build, we pass down blessings. In this sense, right livelihood is a legacy. It is our way of saying to those who come after, I cared enough to live responsibly, so that you might also live well. Sometimes, it may feel as though the pressures of modern life push us to compromise. We may hear voices saying, everyone cheats a little, or, you have to bend the rules to survive. But these are illusions born from fear. The truth is, survival rooted in dishonesty is fragile. It may seem stable for a time, but eventually it collapses. In contrast, survival rooted in honesty may take longer, may seem harder, but it endures. It is like building a house on solid rock rather than sand. Right livelihood is that solid rock. We can also see right livelihood in small daily actions. A carpenter repairing a chair with care. A farmer tending to crops without poisoning the soil. A shopkeeper offering fair prices and a kind word. These are not grand gestures, yet they embody a profound truth, that our work can be a form of love. Through right livelihood, every task becomes an act of service. Right livelihood is deeply connected with mindfulness. When we are mindful, we see clearly the impact of our work. We notice whether our job uplifts or harms, whether it nourishes or drains. Mindfulness helps us make choices that align with compassion. Without mindfulness, we may slip into harmful patterns without even realizing it. But with mindfulness, We shine a light on our daily path. We become conscious creators of our livelihood rather than blind followers of habit. This teaching also helps us redefine success. Society often equates success with wealth, fame, or position, but in the light of right livelihood, success means something else: a peaceful mind, a clear conscience, a heart full of kindness. True success is being able to say, "I did my best without harming anyone." It is being able to close your eyes at night without regret. It is waking each morning with gratitude rather than fear. You may ask, but can I really survive with right livelihood in such a competitive world? The answer is yes. Survival is not only possible, it is deeper and more stable. Because right livelihood aligns with the natural laws of life. When you live honestly, people trust you. When you work with care, opportunities open. When you respect others, respect returns. It may take time, but the roots grow strong. In contrast, shortcuts built on harm eventually collapse. Another dimension of right livelihood is joy. Work should not only provide money, it should also provide meaning. When we choose a path aligned with our values, even hard work becomes fulfilling. Fatigue feels different when it comes from honest effort rather than exploitation. There is pride in tired hands that have created something real, something useful. That pride is joy. Right livelihood transforms work from a burden into a blessing. Right livelihood also invites us to be creative. If our current work does not fully align with the path, we can find ways to adjust. Perhaps by shifting our role, by bringing more fairness into our dealings, by reducing harmful practices, or by transitioning gradually to a more wholesome career. It is not about instant perfection, it is about continuous movement toward greater harmony. Every step counts. Ultimately, right livelihood is about wholeness. It unites survival with values, outer work with inner peace. It dissolves the divide between making a living and living well. Through right livelihood, our job is no longer separate from our spiritual path. It becomes our spiritual path. Each hour of honest work, each act of fairness, each moment of care is itself a practice. And when life becomes practice, peace is never far. Right livelihood is not about separating the spiritual from the practical. It is about recognizing that the way we live and the way we earn our living are already spiritual. Every choice we make at work reflects who we are inside. Every decision we take, whether to tell the truth or to hide it, whether to treat others fairly or to exploit them, becomes part of our character. Over time, these choices shape our destiny. The Buddha never taught that we must leave society or abandon daily life to find peace. Instead, he showed that peace can be found right within ordinary life, if we live rightly. Right livelihood is one of the clearest doors into that peace. It means that our daily work, rather than being a distraction from the path, is the path itself. Each transaction, each task, each moment of labor becomes an opportunity to cultivate honesty, compassion, and mindfulness. Think of someone working in a simple trade, maybe a tailor sewing clothes. If they approach their work with care, with fairness, with love for the people who will wear those clothes, their livelihood becomes a gift. It is not just fabric and thread, it is dignity, warmth, and kindness stitched into every seam. That is right livelihood in action. Or consider a doctor who heals the sick. Their profession is directly aligned with compassion. Yet even here, the way they practice matters. If they treat patients with respect and sincerity, their work becomes a true service. If they exploit suffering for profit, they lose the essence of right livelihood. So it is not only the kind of job we do but the heart we bring to it that determines whether it is right or wrong livelihood. Right livelihood asks us to be awake. Awake to the consequences of our work. Awake to the values guiding us. Awake to the impact we leave on others. Too often, people fall into careers without reflection, guided only by profit or status. Years later, they may look back with regret. But when we pause to ask, does my work nourish or harm? Does it align with compassion? Then we live more consciously. And conscious living is the foundation of freedom. Another gift of right livelihood is that it reduces inner conflict. Many people today feel torn. They want to live ethically but their jobs pull them in another direction. They long for peace but spend their days in work that creates stress or harm. This inner contradiction eats away at joy. Right livelihood heals that split. When our work matches our values, there is harmony inside. We no longer feel divided. We can breathe more deeply, walk more steadily, and rest more peacefully. Right livelihood also teaches us humility. It reminds us that no work is too small when done with honesty and love. A street cleaner who works with care contributes more to society than a dishonest leader who exploits thousands. A farmer who grows food with respect for the earth nourishes countless lives. Every honest job carries dignity. When we see this, we no longer judge people by wealth or title. We see the real value in sincerity and service. The practice of right livelihood also opens our heart to gratitude. When we reflect on the countless people whose honest work sustains us, the farmers, builders, teachers, drivers, healers, we feel humbled. Our lives are possible because of their integrity. This gratitude encourages us to live with integrity in return. It creates a circle of trust, each person supporting the other. In this way, right livelihood strengthens not only individuals but whole communities. You may wonder, what about times of hardship? When opportunities for right work seem limited, this is where creativity and patience are needed. Sometimes, we cannot immediately change our situation. But even then, we can take steps. We can bring more honesty and care into what we already do. We can begin searching for alternatives, preparing ourselves for a shift. We can set an intention to move toward a livelihood that aligns more fully with compassion. Even small steps matter, because they change the direction of our path. Right livelihood is not a rigid rule, it is a compass. It does not demand perfection overnight. Instead, it points us steadily toward harmony. Every honest effort, every compassionate choice, every mindful step is progress. Over time, those steps carry us far. The Buddha once compared life to a journey across a vast ocean. To reach the other shore, we need a boat that is steady and reliable. Our livelihood is like that boat. If it is built on dishonesty, it leaks. If it is built on harm, it cracks. But if it is built on honesty, compassion, and fairness, it carries us safely through the waves of life. Right livelihood is building that boat with care. When we live this way, something changes deep within us. Work is no longer just about survival. It becomes about meaning. Each day, we know we are contributing, not only taking. Each task, however small, becomes an expression of who we are. This gives life a quiet beauty. It gives our days a sense of purpose. And in the end, when we look back, what will matter? Not how much we accumulated, but how we lived. Not how high we climbed, but how true we remained. Not what titles we carried, but what peace we nurtured. Right livelihood ensures that when that time comes, we can look back with gentle pride and say, I lived honestly. I lived with compassion. I lived in harmony. My friend, the teaching of right livelihood is an invitation to live with integrity, with mindfulness, with love. It is a reminder that our work is not separate from our path. It is our path. Each day we choose, each moment we act, we are shaping the direction of our heart. May we all choose the path that brings peace, that nourishes life, that leaves behind a legacy of kindness. Thank you for walking with me through this reflection. May your days be filled with honest work, peaceful rest, and the quiet joy that comes from living rightly. And may the spirit of right livelihood guide you always toward a life of balance, freedom, and compassion.